language? I just noticed he said, let's fucking go. Is that fine?
Art requires sacrifice. Everything is a trade off. We are discussing LARP design in the nerdiest of senses, and we are discussing that with some of the most wonderful and valuable and delightful game designers in Victoria. Um, so, Immersive Arts
And me too.
Melbourne. And also Ivan. Thanks, Ivan. We are Immersive Arts Melbourne is a group of LARP writers and event managers who want to help more LARPs happen, who love the LARP medium as an art form. We've made a bunch of games over the years. We want to see more. Stay tuned to our pilot season projects and our official launch event in 2026. These people are not necessarily immersive arts people. We're not trying to claim them as ours as we would love to, but instead we would like to ask, hello everyone, let's introduce ourselves, and what I want to ask each person is, who are you? A little bit, just like a couple of sentences about your LARP history and what LARP you're currently running, or most recently ran. Let's run to Gavin.
Hi, my name's Gavin. I use he, him pronouns. I live and write on the lands of the Kulin Nation. I started LARPing more than a decade ago. I started out NPCing with the first run of Zeppelin. Josie and I ran Watches of Easthaven for a while. And at the moment, I am running Revenant's End with Caligo Mundi. It's a campaign game set in a weird West setting. Uh, and yeah, it's a 9 session game. Uh,
Nine
it's good.
sessions
Yeah,
specifically. You're going to call it
9
End of
sessions.
Nine?
Yes, yes. We have
That's
an ending planned. Stick
that's
of dynamite with a 9 session fuse.
that's extremely watches of you. Ivan.
Hola, I'm Ivan. I've been running freeforms as they typically used to be known in Melbourne since the mid 90s. I think my first one was an Asterix one. Um, I'm currently involved with Midnight in Melbourne. I'm one of the co-producers of Midnight in Melbourne. We run our events every 3 months, based on the world of Vampire the Masquerade. Uh, we try to call it a theatrical role play. We're taking theatrical design principles, and we try to have a costumes and cocktails design principle to it. We're trying to be casual, we're trying to be wankers, we're trying to have fun, and we're trying to be a little bit more artsy than gamey.
I love it. Des.
Yes. My name's Desiree. I currently run The Hobbit's Hoedown. Been doing it since 2019. We also have a spin-off game called the Shire Folk Shindig over in Massachusetts as well. So yeah, that's us. We do Hobbit lot.
Amazing. Love it. Jess.
My name is Jess Lou. My pronouns are they, them. And I'm coming to you from Wurundjeri lands in the East Kulin Nations. And I'm the co-producer of A Dance of Ribbons, which had its final iteration this year. And I'm relatively new to the LARP scene. I started 3 years ago with A Dance of Ribbons, and I don't know anything about LARPing, but I do know a lot about theatre and immersivity and interactivity. And A Dance of Ribbons is a 4-day festival that is horror folk themed, and it has a heavy focus on roleplay as opposed to mechanics or battle.
Fantastic. I thank you to Larry and Indigo Decay for the follows. We love that. Rob.
Hi everybody, I'm Robert and I'm one of the members of Immersive Arts Melbourne. My most recent LARP event that I worked on was as head of story for Blackadder and Bloodline, which ran from 2016-ish to 2020. Before that, I assisted with a couple of different LARPs around Victoria, but my first LARP that I ran was as part of the team for Zeppelin Games from 2008 to 2012, I think. And I have been LARPing as long as I have been legally allowed to, since I was 16 in 2004, and wanted to well before then.
I was also in Zeppelin, and I would like to point out we ran till 2014, actually.
Sorry. Yep.
But also it was a delight.
My pronouns are he and him. Sorry.
Thank you. I'm Josephine, or Josie, or Joe. Nowadays, I mostly play LARPs, and I like to talk about them a lot. Apparently, I'm having some trouble with being loud enough on Discord, or loud enough on the stream. So in the meantime, Robert, today we are talking about the LARP mixing desk. We're talking about... Essentially, this is a LARP design tool, right? Or a means of thinking about LARP design. And I would like you to introduce that to our audience.
Thank you very much, Josie. So the mixing desk is a concept that the Immersive Arts crew wholesale stole from the Nordic LARP community, and specifically the Nordic LARP wiki. And then we sort of took it, made it our own, and made it something that's sort of an inalienable part of how we approach live role-playing game design. The Nordics, they use it as sort of as a pedagogical tool for organizing their thoughts. And I personally, I can't speak for everyone necessarily, but I personally see it as an essential step in the LARP design process. It's not only really useful, but it also for game design itself, but it also helps solidify an organizing team as a process. And I actually think that may be one of the more important parts of it than the actual form. So this goes to the core of what we do in our values of seeing LARP as an art form. And we see it as a creative art form, and that your design choices should always be made deliberately and consciously. To quote Michael Waghorn, a long-time LARPer in Melbourne, as a game designer, you decide what to include and what to remove in order to manage your player's experience. And the mixing desk helps you make those decisions. So that's a lot about why. But what it is if you imagine like a sound technician at a concert, and they've got the big technical desk, and they've got all the knobs and the slidey things, right? And they're fiddling with the settings, and they're making sure that everyone has the best sonic experience possible. The slidey things, they're actually called faders, we've been told. And so we used to call them sliders because they slide. Now we call them faders because apparently that's what they're properly called. And so by using the same idea as a LARP designer, you fiddle with those settings in order to ensure that the play experience your players and your other participants have meets your expectations. And so a good LARP, right, you go through your faders, you set your settings, you write them down, you make your decisions, and then you proceed with the rest of your game design. It is a very early step in the game design process as far as we use it and as far as we recommend it, because of what it's useful for. Does that make sense to everybody on the panel and in chat? Yeah, you're all imagining.
The panel gets it. The chat.
Yep.
The chat, on the other hand, any responses? No, all our viewers are bots. Okay.
Great.
Carrying on.
Yeah.
So I think that it is a key point. Oh, thank you, August. Is my audio better now, August, or Taryn, or any of you people? Faders are kind of a turny knob that called a potentiometer, which measures potential. Thank you, Daniel. Love that work. So, I mean, the key thing here is not so much that it is necessary to use the mixing desk if you would like to design a LARP, but that it is necessary to discuss your design decisions, to make sacrifices from one to the other. And this is a means that we think is fabulous for doing it. I'm going to show you. I have an underwater-like echo now. Amazing. I'm so bad at this. Hopefully this fixes it. We're going to keep going. I don't know. I have here a picture of the original LARP mixing desk and a set of faders. The original mixing desk of LARP was created for the LARP Rider Summer School in 2012 in Scandinavia. They're very Scandinavian. It's very Nordic LARP. And the first slider here is the communication style between verbal and physical. We have whether we're going to look at hardcore pressure on players or pretense. There are a variety of these. And Gavin, I would like you to talk briefly about... Keep in mind that no one can see you right now. All they can see is the faders from the mixing desk of LARP. But I would like you to talk about what this says about Nordic LARP. The assumptions.
Yeah. I've been doing a little bit of extracurricular reading of late about some of the earlier Nordic LARPs, particularly in the late 90s to the early 2000s, and some of the manifestos that the various LARPrites constructed to help build their games. And several of the sliders that are in here really have the same DNA as those manifestos. There was a very strong focus in a lot of those games on getting realism and immersion, looking for 360 fidelity on the experience of actually living these things out. And I'll probably talk a bit more specifically about some of these things when we get to certain sliders, certain faders. Just because of how they particularly reflect certain ideals of what a game should look like. It's not to say that the tool itself is not useful. It is. It's a very useful tool. It's just that when particularly Australian LARPrites are using it, I would very much suggest that people hold some of these ideas in their mind, that we're not just wholesale copying Nordic LARP, and instead bring our own influence and our own cultures, discard what we don't need, and be aware of why certain choices were made along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it is very key that we're talking here about trade-offs, right? Because art is sacrifice. We include some stuff, we can't include other stuff, and that is a choice we make. So what I want to do is our first topic is thinking about trade-offs and thinking about faders and sliding one fader to another. It's like in the most recent, or the LARP in which we're talking about for you today, what's an important decision that you made very early in the design, and how did things proceed from that? Like, what is a thing that you were like, we want a lot of this, and what did you sacrifice for that? We're going to start with Des, and then we're going to go Jess, Ivan, Gavin, Rob.
Des, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Des. Talk louder.
Thank you. I apologize. So what choices did we first make when we started including those faders into the mix? I guess the physical realm of the Hobbit's Hoedown is something that we put a really big emphasis on. Partially because I myself am a very highly aesthetical person, as you could probably see from my background. But that's just how I package things. That's how I express myself through my art form. So that's why the Hobbit's Hoedown is so decorated. And also, there's no overarching plot except for the beats of what a family party would be. There's no real sort of machinations or secrecy that happens in terms of the actual play itself. But we also wanted to test out social engineered mechanics through community design, and to see whether or not we could teach our players to play a certain way and role play a certain way, and how close could we get the gap between really new players and really old school veteran LARPers. We have a 50-50 split between our new players and our old players. Statistically, we just see new players come in and returning players, and it's really great to have the retention of both. But then it becomes a a balancing act, I suppose, in our workshops to get that gap managed. So one of our other faders, therefore, is GM involvement or director involvement in cultivating an actual how close we are to the players and how we try to interface with our players. We're not GMs who just sort of hide out in HQ and send NPCs. We're actively involved in the gameplay as well because we play essentially party organizers in the game. So we are a part of the fabric of the interaction in the community, and we view ourselves as community leaders that are also partaking in a lateral sense with our players.
And I think that's a really interesting choice, right? It's a thing that works very well at the Hobbit's Hoedown, where the GMs are hobbits who are just there, right? They're not gods or spirits or powers. They're other hobbits.
Yeah. I think it also builds a sense of intimacy between the directors and the players, and it can at times feel and I've said this recently to someone, and it was odd thought that I had, but it was a sensation that I was starting to have where I was sometimes I feel like a mascot. I'm this Hobbit mascot that is at the party and trying to get FaceTime, as a cat, like a Disney character princess who's got these rules or these standards that they have in how they interact with the community to make everyone feel as cozy with each other as possible. And that's on purpose. We want our players to feel like we like them. And therefore, we try our best to treat them like we like them.
Yeah, and I think that there's a discussion that we could have around how LARP GMs and representatives need to change who they are for the public face, or how to represent themselves. But for the moment, Jess, you have an important decision or an important sacrifice or trade-off that the dance crew made very early and how things proceeded.
Yeah, as I was doing my research for this, I was going through our 2023 Google Drive, and it was a absolute fucking mess. But on one of the whiteboards that we were brainstorming on, we had written quite like bold and center was like magic, ritual, community. And I think one of the really important choices we made was prioritizing role play and prioritizing magic, like as opposed to game mechanics or battle or anything like that. And how that sort of evolved like throughout the following years was realizing that our GMs that we would send out into the world could have an aesthetic. They don't have to be like, you know, kind of outside forces. They can be a part of the world. And then later on became actually the world itself, and became very integrated with the role play itself. And they became figureheads as well.
Yeah, and kind of
yeah.
mascots, right? Like they're physically
Yeah.
very, or aesthetically very, very representative.
Very representative. And that was just really important. And then by the final year, we were able to play with the immersivity of it all and really break that like meta kind of fourth wall that you would call in theatre. I don't know what to call it in LARP, but
I feel like fourth wall is fine for LARP.
yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, broke that immediately.
Yeah.
In the final year, by removing them from gameplay in the final day. Yeah.
Yeah. Ivan?
I think one of the first things that we definitely abandoned was traditional ideas of how Vampire the Masquerade is usually run, how it works, even to the extent of the systems that we use. We've abandoned those. I've done a lot of World of Darkness LARPs in the past and freeforms in the past, and I didn't want to do that with this. I wanted to avoid a lot of what I saw as pitfalls or mistakes or things that just impeded what I wanted to see with what we were doing, even to the extent of abandoning the idea that it was a game. We try never to talk about our event as being a game. We say it's not a game. It's a theatrical role play. We don't have players. We have performers in the same way that we don't have players. We have players and not performers. We have storytellers, not game masters. The framework is important there. Like using
Framework
terms like the
matters,
fourth
though,
wall.
right? Yeah. Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, like we talk about having scenes and acts. We have so abandoning some of those is difficult because there's an expectation when you're running something as well known as a medium as vampire, that there are things that people expect and want and desire, and when we aren't using those, where we are using different terminology, you get friction there with the expectations that people have. I think it's important for us to be having that. Like we haven't really used the faders as such. We have some core pillars that we have, costumes and cocktails being primarily a big part of it, and that's a big part of a sacrifice we had to make as well, realizing that because this is a more casual experience, we want to bring people who are new in. We want to bring people who aren't gamers, who aren't role players. This started as a thing for off-duty bartenders, basically.
And so
we
you
want
have
to
to
get people
lose a
in
bunch of the crunch, right?
Yeah, not only that, but like also as we've gotten more people who are really into vampire in, we've lost some of the non-gamer crowd as well. There's always a difficult trade-off of being able to balance who our audience is, what our audience want, and how we can encourage our audience to be on board with what we're trying to promote, and we get affected by what they do as well. So those are some big sacrifices we had to make, in that we had to get rid of a lot of it. We had to abandon a lot of expectations of what we saw as this event being, and what other people thought this would be.
Yeah, absolutely. Gavin,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit. You're the most recent LARP here when you're talking about Revenant's End. It's like 3-4 months old.
Yes. We're
Um, the
3
new kids on
months,
the block.
3 sessions.
So, yeah, let's talk about some of those choices and restrictions.
Yeah. One of the earliest decisions we made as a team was around our game mechanics, our resolution mechanics. Because as a game, we are running in a like library meeting room space. We don't have the room or the capacity to bring along Nerf gun 6 shooters or foam larp swords. That's a nightmare for insurance. So we very quickly decided on having a card draw mechanic to do this, and specifically, we decided to run with blackjack. It was aesthetically appropriate to our Weird West setting. Everybody loves playing card games in a Western style setting. It wasn't as complex as poker, could be shown in hand. We didn't need tables or anything to deal or roll dice on. But it's had some interesting spin off effects. In terms of the game, because it is blackjack, because it is this push your luck mechanic, it really cements in the players this feeling of the tension of acts when they're not out and out succeeding. It's a real strong question of how far can I push this? How much is this important to me? Am I willing to go bust on this draw and have it fail catastrophically? Or will I stay reserved and hope that the GMs are kind and benevolent? For the back end, it's influenced a whole range of systems on how we designed our skills and mechanics, how we've been talking about leveling up and spending XP, what it means to be more skilled in one area than another. And all of those have had to be built around a very restrictive and intrusive game mechanic.
Yeah, like blackjack odds are important, right? Like that changes
Very
your
much so.
numbers. Fantastic. Rob, Ivan, you would like to follow up on
I just
that?
wanted to ask Gav a question actually,
Yeah,
because
no, please do.
that is
This is supposed to be
with
a
a
conversation much more than some sort of like. We're not doing like a series of TED Talks. We're supposed to be a bunch of
no,
nerds having a chat.
I wanted to ask about your choice of using blackjack because I think it's a great one, especially with the push your luck idea of it. Um, and
Yeah.
and evidently you would have checked poker because it just works with the motif and the theme. How how long did you spend deciding between blackjack and poker? Was there anyone particularly really pushing for the thing? And did you look at different forms of poker, such as the use of draw compared to? Because I know in Deadlands, in several versions of Deadlands, they've chosen like with dueling, they used they used Hold'em, but whereas like with their magic system, they used draw. And also, did you consider Pharaoh, which was really the honest card game at the time?
We did not consider Pharaoh, mostly because it's not a game that many of our team were familiar with, or potentially our players were. We wanted something that was immediately graspable by players, and so it sort of came down to those questions. Poker got eliminated relatively quickly, specifically because Deadlands is a thing. We didn't want to run a Deadlands game because we knew we would be running for a bunch of people who are much more experienced in Deadlands than we were. And being the expert at the table is a really useful thing for the GM team when we're the ones that know the most about our setting, rather than somebody who comes in and goes, actually, Ghost Drop doesn't work like that. We're like, but it has to for our system because we've said it does. We limited and eliminated that piece of friction by just going, this is not a Deadlands game. We're doing our own thing. It has required a lot more writing on our behalf, but it was also this thing of, it's very easy for a GM to turn over 2 cards and hold them out, rather than we've got to draw 5 and then we've got to remove some and add some in. It's very quick and very simple.
We do need to get to Rob to talk about the sacrifices and choices early, but I just want to pick up that thing about setting power, right? Or setting experience, because Jess and Rob are both coming from LARPs that are new IPs or new intellectual property, like they're not established. And Ivan and Des are both coming from LARPs that have more lore than any fucking human could ever possibly imagine. Like,
until we start a 40k one.
Until we start a 40k one, or a June one, there is nothing that compares to Lord of the Rings or Vampire the Masquerade, right?
We are actually an original IP. Our hobbits are not at all Tolkien. We are legally distinct.
No similarity to any halflings, living or full, is intended.
Is that how you're dealing with that question, Des? Genuinely.
I mean,
genuinely.
Behind me, we've literally, like, not only have we like created lore and maps and things, but yeah, we have original names. We have original places.
You are legally distinct hobbits.
We are legally distinct hobbits. Okay. Even in Shirefolk.
Yeah.
They are called Shirefolks and halflings because they're not allowed to say hobbits. But we can say hobbit.
No,
we don't have the same.
Because halfling has legally different things than hobbit does.
Yeah.
I don't like the term halfling.
Okay, but there's a lot. There's a lot. Rob, let's talk about important decisions and sacrifices or trade-offs that you made early. Because Black Powder is an older game than any of these other ones. We're talking about, 1964 LARP here. And, yeah. Why don't you... Sorry. Thank you, Siren Voyager, for the follow. Appreciate that. Rob, tell us about some early decisions and trade-offs that Black Powder had to make.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about two relating two faders to keep it on the desk. So one that I'm going to pick on, following on from our conversation we just had about setting, is in loyalty to world, the prescripted fader from the desk. Is the graphic still up? I don't have.
No, I can put it up.
No, it's okay. It's okay if you don't.
There it is. It's up now.
The two ends of that fade are loyalty to world, which is kind of on the right. They go from playability to plausibility, right? And plausibility, if you dig deeper into that fader idea, it's about how rich, how fleshed out, how much additional material there is in the setting, beyond what might be used in the game, right? We all know about that. Those people who've written 10,000 words of setting for their LARP project, which no one's ever going to see, but they treat it very much as a holy text, right? That's one end. The other end is playability, where you're just making it up on the fly, whatever works, nothing else matters. So Black Powder, unless I'm mistaken, and deleted something before sharing it, there is not a single word of background that was written that was not shown to a participant, whether that be a player or an NPC. Not a word, because we took the approach in that loyalty to world that the world that the players and the NPCs created through play was significantly more important than anything that we sort of invented on our own in the background. If it existed in our heads, it's not important. It hits play or it doesn't exist. So that's one.
Can we pause for live
Yeah.
reactions from the panel on it hits play or it doesn't exist for a matter of law? Because Jess did a face, and I would like to see what that face said. I think it was a positive face, for the record, but I would like to hear about it.
I just make faces all of the time, but also very expressive. I love that it's about for you specifically about like responding directly to player creation and player world, because that's what we tried to do at Dance of Ribbons, is create a structure and a container in which players can make choices that vastly like alter the storyline for everyone else. And yeah, the way that we designed the dance over the 3 years has just been like purely geared towards that, but also finding a balance with that, and then also creating structure so that there is kind of a shepherded experience as opposed to just like freeform play.
Yeah, and we obviously we wrote background and we had mechanics for players to interact with the background. But the main point was that in order to recognize that the players are the primary authors of the story, there wasn't 10,000 pages of backstory sitting in on a Google Drive somewhere that we were looking back at. Either someone saw it, or it didn't matter. So there was no wasted words. Was what we tried to do there to enable that level of freedom.
And when you say wasted words, you mean words that did not make it to quote unquote screen?
Yeah, and that might have been because we handed it to an NPC. It might have been because we handed it to a player. It might have been because we explained it. We published a document, but everything that was written about the world was shared, as far as I can remember.
Okay. Gavin, you had a reaction.
Yeah. Broadly speaking, absolutely agree. Both from like a LARP player perspective, if I've got a personal backstory and it doesn't hit the screen, then it didn't really exist. There is a small caveat that I personally have on top of that of you don't have to show it directly. It can just be the influence of the thing on the world. It can be the reaction to this thing. You don't need full exposition of in 1792 this thing happened. It can just be the bleed through effect of what the society does, how the world reacts to that, why your character goes and heavily drinks every time somebody particularly mentions the word crimson. Sooner or later, like as long as the core of the information, and the effects of it hit the screen, then it's real. As long as it is tangible and touchable in a game.
Jess.
I just wanted to jump off that because yes, we created dance to be very player driven, but I just remembered that there is still lore that we have written that, like you're saying, like was introduced into the world but not explicitly, and actually was really important lore for us because we were making decisions in the tank informed by those pieces of lore, and the lore was just a tool for us to make on the fly decisions in regards to the story and what to send the NPCs out to do as well, and the GMs.
Rob.
Sorry, Josie?
I said Rob.
Good, because I was going to say some things. I was going to jump off.
I was like, it's your turn to say something.
It is.
Rob, why don't you say something?
I was going to jump off and say that, Jess, when we needed law to inform our decisions, for stuff that wasn't in the briefings at Black Powder. We just made it up.
But if you've written lore to back your decisions and to back what you expect players to do,
Yeah.
then that counters on screen, right?
Yes, exactly. And that sort of that foreshadows something I want to talk about a little bit later to sort of get back at what Gavin said right at the start, but I'll keep that under my hat. I want to talk about the second thing that I said I would talk about. The other fader that I wanted to talk about was the game mechanics for Black Powder. Right at the start, we decided we wanted really, really, really discrete rules. We'd all come from combat-heavy games where you're calling numbers. Zeppelin was a step down from the games that we started playing, where you'd call multiple numbers and then have to do maths in your head and then have to do battleboarding and maths after every fight. And so we sort of gradually staged it down until the combat rules at Black Powder were: if you get hit, lie down. If it's in the body, stay down. And all of our mechanics were ways to hide the rules crunch off screen by going and talking to a GM or doing it in your head, with one exception. And that was if you came to a non-resisting person and you walked up to them and you looked them in the eye, there was a game call that you needed to make to end that character's life. And it was, I want you to die. And that was the only game call which we explicitly designed to break that immersion because of just how messed up that moment was supposed to be for the player, so that they would understand the significance of taking a life.
And I think that's interesting because also, like, you can strike someone in Black Powder with your weapon, and they would be injured and they would fall down and they would no longer be a problem for you in that moment. But if you actually wanted to kill them, you needed to do that. Right? Let's spend a moment.
Yeah, I had my work cut out for me.
Go, Des.
Playing a medic is hard
us.
work in a lethal combat game, Des.
Yeah, I felt like I wasn't. I mean, like, in a way, I was grateful for the opportunity to play as a surgeon in Black Powder and Bloodlines as a player, because one, I'd never played a healer or a surgeon before, and I did not expect just how full my day would become and how many steps I'd do, just because there was just I think the death mechanic worked with the risk factor a lot of the time, and especially because it was such a resource scarcity sort of centered game. You kind of had to risk it for the biscuit. It did mean that I saw a lot of FaceTime one-on-one with a lot of patients who were bleeding out, and so that was both delightful in that I got to have such dramatic play with a lot of people, such gory play, because I really wanted to make it real for the person I was playing with as well.
That was all you.
But yeah,
we didn't mandate the use of the blood props. That was all you.
Yeah.
Not.
But I think it gave something, a little je ne sais quoi, to anyone who was actively bleeding out. But yeah, no, like the playground was ripe for the taking in terms of like the mechanics and how the death was like became a threat, and also how dangerous as a landscape, so to speak, and setting that we were in as well. So yeah, no, it made my job as a player much easier to have things to do all of the time.
And I think that's a really important point, because it points out that not when we adjust one of our faders, it doesn't just affect that fader, right? It's not just how you kill someone and how they killed, but also there's a bunch of immersion stuff that is affected. There is a bunch of like other stuff. There's the 360 illusion. There's the how difficult it is to get involved in this game. There is the how strong are the mechanics. There is the character creation stuff gets involved in what are you getting killed by. So, let's talk about how do you die in your game and why did you make that decision, Gavin?
That's a really fascinating question, given what happened to our players in the very last session we ran. They're currently sitting on a wild bit of a cliffhanger because death is not as reliable as they were led to assume. But prior to this point, we wanted a very dangerous world. We wanted it's a Western setting. There should be a moment for two people to step out into the street at high noon, take 10 paces, and one of them drops after one gunshot. It should only be the very powerful gunslingers who are able to do that sort of a thing, but we wanted that flavor of it. We wanted the world to feel deadly and dangerous and these types of things. So we have a very, very small hit point pool. In our game, it is 7. And the way that we essentially work things out is that guns do a certain amount of damage, and then you add your skill in gunslinging on the top of it, which for a maxed out gunslinger is somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 points of damage. If you hit 7, that's it, you're gone. There is no doctor in the world that can help you. Yeah. Particularly, depending on what weapon they've got and how heavily they've invested in it. But yes, it was designed to be that dangerous. Brawl and stuff, melee combat is a little bit easier to survive. Numbers. And we see if certain factors apply. And I can't really get into too much of that because it's an ongoing game and it's happened to one player so far. So there's a measure of secrecy here, which is on one of the other sliders that I'm just not going to get into. But we did decide we wanted this to feel dangerous, and there are certain weird things that are. The way that I like to think about it
in the title, Gavin.
It does. And our players have suddenly realized that, oh no, maybe there's a problem there. The way I like to think about this is the world runs on a physics engine. We have a certain set of rules as the game designers, so we know what happens, but the players aren't tracking the movements of electrons on atoms. They don't have to know the exact physics of the world to live in it and experience it. What we decided was we wanted this to feel really dangerous, and it is a really dangerous world. There are some things that'll just out and out kill you, which does mean that our players and our gunslingers only get into gunfights when they really need to. It's that thing of you push the realism of these things. And when players drop, then there's conversations to have. Some folks have backup characters. I would recommend folks have backup characters.
Which is a fine choice. What about you, Ivan? How do you die in Midnight in Melbourne? Do you want players?
Oh, you're already dead. You're already dead. They're vampires. They've died before.
Okay, but not really though.
And it wouldn't be.
We're not playing Wraith, Ivan. Don't do it.
More's the pity.
I know. We're all very sad about it.
I want to do a Wraith thing, actually.
No, don't do it.
Anyway, it would not be a vampire experience without blood. It's got to get bloody at some stage. And the classic thing with vampire is that it's meant to be an experience which is personal horror experience, a battle against the beast. That's very hard to do in a live action environment, so that gets externalized to the other types of vampiric factions. We only have a limited number of vampiric factions, so 5 clans generally is what we have. And so one of the ways in which your character can be removed is simply that your faction is no longer in town. We have a way in which, with territorial disputes and searching for hunting grounds, your character just might have to leave anyway, which isn't so much a death of a character, but it is not that they won't turn up to the next episode. Maybe one down the line, if that character comes back. We actively encourage friction between the factions. That's one of the other sliders we talk about. We may talk about is that the conflict is interpersonal. This is a political horror game. It's a political horror experience and role play. So we have a very simple combat system. It's one of the big problems in any role play is that the most exciting, dynamic, and fast-moving scenes tend to be the longest to actually portray, unless you're doing some kind of live, like a buffer contact LARP experience. If you're doing something like your Swordcrafts or other contact LARPs, then that can be just as quick and dynamic as anything else. But for us, we basically have a combat. We call it the bloodbath. We have bloodbaths, as we call them, where we will stop the action, and it basically works on pointing fingers at people you want to see ripped apart. It tends to be quite exciting. Originally, it was only meant to be happening once in a night.
The bloodbath, you stop the action.
Yep. Well, yeah, you'll have to be out of you'll stop performing at that stage.
Okay, and everyone's like, you need to die. That guy needs to die, like a werewolf.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. What you do is on the count of very simply on the count of 3, point at someone you want to see torn apart, or point your thumb at someone you want to see protected. And if there's more fingers pointed at you than thumbs, you're out.
Why?
We want to make sure that that violence is just like Gavin's experience there with making sure that the combat is brutal, bloody, and fast and effective. It's all the vampires going all out to tear their opponent to pieces.
Right. Okay.
And it also means that you need to rely on allies and finding opportunities to get people who will back you up. Because if you want to be able to attack someone, you better make sure someone's watching your back, because you're not defending yourself. You're largely helpless when you're attacking. So make sure someone's got your back. And they might have people getting their back, so make sure that there's other people in it. So those scenes, and there has been at least one episode where we've had no violence at all. And the episode before last, we had no violence. This last episode, it got very bloody. But also, violence can only happen when the lights are red. It can only happen during a red state. We change our lighting states and even our music selection depending on what is expected at certain scenes.
Yeah,
so if it's a witching hour, the lights are red and combats can happen there, and certain spells and rituals can only happen during a witching hour. Whereas if the lights are blue, then it's a calm state. If the lights are green, then that's where you should be with your faction in the green room, talking about what you're going to be doing during the event.
Delightful.
But yeah, I'm glad you like it.
I do.
It's the more theatrical process. We do have people mentioning things like they might go off to the toilet or something, and when they come back out, suddenly the lights have gone red and like the music's gone, like suddenly become nightclubby rather than the jazz that was before. They're like, suddenly it puts them on edge. They're like, anything can happen now. Like it's just gotten dangerous. It's just gotten dark. So we use our environment to be able to encourage the style of performance that we're wanting to see at that time.
What about you, Des? Like, Hobbits is not a notably violent game. But I think that is because of deliberate decisions, and I think it's important to talk about those decisions. So let's
Yeah,
talk
no, I
about
think
how PvP works at the Hobbit Hoedown.
player versus environment. Yeah. I mean, look, the setting that we have is pretty gorgeous. Like, it's really important to us for our location to be one of the things that is just actually visually beautiful. And so we put a lot of effort not only into finding a spot that was right for us, thematically, but also we put a lot of work into the set dressing, and we do that every year. Like, every year, our stuff sort of expands. Yeah, no, the setting and the visual component of for us is something that we feel really adds to the 360 immersion style, like, gaming that we try as much as we can to adhere to. But in terms of like what's going on, no one's dying. It's supposed to be a safe space, and the aims of the game thematically link up to us about like the setting that it's set in. So we want our players to feel as safe as possible, to not only put themselves out there in a sort of social way that is all really socially directed, because even all of our events that we have, like the scheduled things that we have during our events, they're all ways to perform some sort of character. And they're all ways to socially interface with fellow players. So yeah, and we want our players to kind of realize as well that there are more ways to skin a cat than just having a really dramatic role play experience that is like emotionally tortured and traumatic and things like that. That experiences that are enriching and gentle and sort of remind people about like the way they want to feel. We felt like it's really easy in this world to sort of, I guess, know at a glance that the world is not a great place sometimes, and it can really fatigue the mind. And we wanted to express to players that part of that solidarity is community and the way that we play with each other, and we wanted to express that in a way that also expressed well-being. So yeah, we think it's also important to play through the feelings of being safe and together. And that even though I totally think that games that like express dying and dealing with death and rituals around death and what it means to have legacy, I think all of those LARPs are really valid and should exist. And I love playing them myself. But I think that just as equally, it can be a worthwhile experience to have players embody what it feels like to feel like you belong to a place and not just be tolerated in a space.
Hey, Destiny, can I ask you a question there?
Yeah, of course.
Like we both have LARPs where people are playing characters who are in a kind of a family unit environment. We've got our clans, you've got your Hobbit families. How much tribalism do you see? Because we actively foster some tribalism, of course, and there is friction between our different groups. But also, we'll have, I definitely know in the vampire scene, there are people who will gravitate towards certain clans or even refuse to turn up if they can't be their chosen one. Do you get much of that at all with your Hobbit families?
No, we honestly, parts of it are on purpose. Like myself as the head director and my two co-directors, Evelyn and Hayden, we all play characters that are from different families, but we want to be modeling that we like interface with each other, that we are social together. So we kind of try and have this like top-down role modeling, I suppose, of like what it is to be friends. And not only that, but all of our workshops, we sort of try and get people not only to interface with each other, like as a whole, like we kind of get to everyone as a mass, and then we have people go off into different families to kind of get to know them. But the families for us, they represent not only different pathways of how you interact with the game as a player, and how culturally you want to be with your family, but also we feel as though when people feel like they belong to a tighter, like knit group of people that work onto something together to sort of like bring to the game and show other families, that we get people sort of positively responding to what other families do, and they're like, that was great, that was amazing. And there's a lot of praise and compliments very easily thrown around. And yeah, no, I feel as though not only have we tried to create that atmosphere with our players, but as well as our players are really good at communicating that with each other. There was actually a moment that really demonstrated that for me this year with our workshop prior to the actual event taking place. All of our players were waiting for us to move on to the next activity, and we were setting it up. And one of our players seemed to, and this is a story that I'm told because I saw it differently, but essentially one of our players looked at another player and said, like, your skirt's really lovely. That you look beautiful. And that person spun around to show off their outfit, and everyone around them sort of like it caught their eye, that movement, and everyone around them started like politely golf clapping. And then that turned that turned into it evolved into this play where other people would point at another player, and that person would like curtsy or like do a wave or spin around or what have you, and then everyone would just like politely golf clap, and it was organic.
Yeah,
It wasn't
that's
something
so
that we
nice.
planned at all. It was something that just sort of came out of our players spontaneously. And I remember, like, as I was saying, I didn't know that that was happening at the front of where this thing happened because it was contagious. It just kept on coming further, closer and closer to myself and Hayden. And we were like, what are they doing? And then it got it more apparent as it got closer to us. And me and Hayden were like, this is perfect. We don't want to like stop them from doing this because our workshop would basically just encourage this behavior.
Yeah.
So we were like, they're already doing it. It just like, we're not going to stop them from doing it or interrupt or anything like that, because what's happening is so authentic. And so we want our players to be like that anyways. And it really was just an expression of like, like we've done it, you know? So it's really lovely.
I think this is an interesting point in that the Nordic faders are lacking, as Indigo Decay puts it, or as Ridian puts it, that the Nordic labels are insufficient here. Also, thank you, Metatron, for the follow, Metatron of Madness.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, well, I thank you for that. I appreciate it. I thanked Siren before, and that's clearly Destiny, but, like, she was nice enough not to point it out, Ivan. Thank you, Neve of Tales, for the follow. Anyway, so I think there's one point that's not discussed in these faders, which is important, which is this factionalism stuff, which is extremely core to Australian LARP. And I want to hear Rob and Jess talk a little bit about how you guys dealt with factionalism and about factions in your LARP in the way that you set them against each other and also within each other. So we're going to go Rob, and then we're going to go Jess, and that's the next bit.
Yeah, all right. So our headline theoretical concept that we tried to keep in our minds when working on Black Powder at all times was that Black Powder and Bloodlines is a game about conflict. It is fundamentally a game where we put the players in a box and shook the box and tried to see if they'd fight. Every axis of character creation was a potential source of conflict. Your character's social class, your character's race, if you were a human or an orc, your character's religious background, your character's national background, and your character's skill set were all intended to be things which people might fight over. Because it was a PvP game about resource scarcity, about colonization, and about the motivations and material conditions for colonization and why it's bad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, LARPers like to be friends, and it didn't always work. And instead of following the recommended guidance where everyone said, oh, can we get some advice about making a character with my friends? I'm like, make sure that none of you have the same character sheet. Very few people followed that advice. So we'd get little clutches of people who were all of the matriarchal faith, who were all from Iskaland, and who were all military characters, for example. We had these little clusters of people with basically the same, stat line, and the same reasons to get into conflicts, who would group up and be friends and move around together. There's no, you can't rule for human nature. People wanted to play the game with their friends, and good on them. So yeah, we didn't quite manage to achieve what we set out there. But there was plenty of conflict. It was just on a larger scale rather than on the interpersonal scale that we were looking for.
Yeah.
Initially.
Jess? Factionalism at Dance?
And how does death work at Dance? You didn't get a chance to explain that.
Yeah. Factionalism, and then August wants to hear about
And then
Dance. About death.
Yeah, so the factions were always a thing for Dance Ribbons because it came out of David's imagined world. And so he already had kind of the vague cultural identities of these different factions. But in all of our planning and our brainstorming, we were really set on making it very community ritual focused, and actually wanted the conflict to come out of NPCs, out of introduced moments, and actually out of the horror moments. And so, and actually this goes really well into the death mechanic of Dance Ribbons. We wanted death to be a very horrific thing that we as game masters could control in the horrific moments. So when we're doing our big horror moments, generally on a Saturday night, they could be a big awful time. And so that there is actually that debrief time before and after that the players can come together and be a community together. And like Rob was saying, LARPers love to be friends. And so we didn't have to do much work at all when it came to creating community or anything. That was all the players. And our introduced elements were the differences, I suppose. So when it came to factionalism, there was obviously divides between Vicarian and Garmontian, cultures, and arguments broke out, and sometimes there'd be difficult conversations that would happen. But as writers and as game designers, we really wanted to make sure that we focused on community. And actually, some of the most beautiful moments were seeing Garmontian and Vicarian characters come together and be very united. And also, the Dance of Ribbons as like an in-world thing is about two cultures coming together and being in harmony when historically they've been in conflict. So always driving for community and then introducing conflict when we wanted it. And then, yeah, the death mechanic, just that beautifully designed ribbon. We knew that, like, we knew that...
so everything comes from that picture of the or that feeling of having somebody pull the ribbon and
yeah, and being drained. Yeah, and also I think at like a game design level, doing kind of a very immersive experience of death is like really hard, obviously, because we don't want anyone to actually get hurt or anything. So
Good characters, not players.
yeah.
Yeah, we wanted it to be a very like scarce thing, if that makes sense, and something we can control.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of questions in the chat that are very good. Like Memento Lath would like to know, how do you guys, and anyone can answer this one, how do you work to get your players onto the same page when it comes to norms? How do you, if you want to play a game about making your future community thrive, how do you design your game such that a bunch of players don't then make a dystopia?
If I
I might. Oh, go for it, Rob.
Rob, then
No,
Ivan.
yeah. Look, what I was going to say is the way that we have achieved that with Black Powder and with Zeppelin was by having a really strong understanding of our goals, and then consciously designing every element of the game to reinforce that. So making combat lethal, and then playtesting that combat with a large proportion of the players, told everyone combat is something you don't really want to do unless you really want to. So we wanted a high conflict, low combat game. So we had all these ways for people to get into a fight, but then like discourage them from actually drawing blood. But ultimately, the way that you communicate your culture is you tell them, and remembering that telling is not just using words; it's using all the symbols and signals you have available to you. And then, if people don't do your game culture the way it's supposed to happen, they can do the game wrong because that's play. But if they do the culture wrong, you take them aside and you tell them. Honestly, you just do it out of character. If the game communication isn't working, obviously work on your game communication. But if the game communication isn't working, use normal communication. That's my advice.
Ivan, then Jess. Then Gavin.
The flippant answer is to say when you work it out, you tell me. But because when it comes down to it, there are people who will just decide, oh, it's going to be fun going off this way and going off script. And I use that very much intentionally. Look, Rob's made a very good point about making sure that your communication is strong. And sometimes you will not know until after damage is done, as it were. Some people treat it as a huge sandbox in which they get to go wild. Other people don't. Other people are looking for direction. To me, it's much like any performer on stage. You've got to make sure that you, as a game designer, as a director, and that's how we look at ourselves as storytellers, just keeping an eye on your performers and letting them know when they're starting to damage the experience for the audience, who are the other performers, of course. That's one of the interesting things about role playing, is that the performers and the audience are the same people. Yeah. So I like to look at it more like as a director. You give, if someone's doing too much or too little, give them a nudge, give them some stage direction.
Yeah.
Let them know what you want. Communication is key. And that might be just stepping up to the actor. It might mean having to stop the performance, which, that's a really extreme way of doing it. Or it might just be subtler things that you brought in because you've seen those last time. We have certain little signifiers that we have around. For instance, we have our characters that wear roses. That is meant to influence the way that you interact with them. We have newer people or less confident performers who wear little red ribbons, and we know that they are new blood.
Yeah.
Our themes are important too. We try to have a theme in each event. So, for instance, we had the theme at one stage was that the house always wins. In that, we had the idea that anyone who was already established kind of had an advantage there. It was difficult to go up against anything like that. A major theme for us is that vampires are symbols of violation, and so therefore, expect that those themes are going to be entrenched and enforced. But when it comes down to your question, there, how do you stop how do you get people to stick with your norms? They've got to know what the norms are. You've got to tell them, and sometimes you'll have to tell people many times. And so anything you can do to encourage certain styles of behavior, telegraph certain styles of behavior. There have been times where we've wanted certain things to occur. We've given clues, and then we realized at the end it was people are just not seeing our clues. We need to be much more just direct instead of edging people towards it, or coaching people or giving clues. Just tell them what you want. Tell them what you want and tell it twice. And then maybe they might go that way. Because also people will oftentimes tell you, the big rule in most role playing is that listen to the people involved. Listen to your players is a classic bit of D&D advice I give to people, and it's a similar thing with that. But sometimes people won't tell you until a line has been crossed, until it's gotten too far, they won't tell you early. Sometimes it's
Jess, norms at Dance of Ribbons.
Norms at Dance of Ribbons. Our workshops were really, really instrumental in broadcasting and communicating what we wanted to play with and what we weren't interested in as well.
Can you talk a little bit about the workshops for the people who didn't play dance here?
Yes. So we ran, this year we ran 4 workshops. The first one, which was Workshop 0, was based around the fundamentals of improv and physical movement, and was just a really great chance for people to meet each other. And then Workshop 1, we delved a lot more into the sociometric sliding scale, which was basically, as your characters, asking everyone to make a choice between 2, kind of agree or disagree between a statement. And Workshop 2 and 3 built off that with more sociometric exercises, embodied physical activities, and then the very important singing activities, which are very super important in a Dance of Ribbons. And our workshops were also very important logistically, because we're managing 300 people on site. We had to make sure everyone was really safe. But yeah, the workshops, I think, were our biggest tool in terms of communicating the norms. And also, when there was kind of conflict arising between factions, we had the really useful tool of the NPCs. We had 56 NPCs this year. I know. Wild.
It's huge numbers, though, right?
It's huge numbers. And so being able to send them in with a game that's not conflict with each other. Yeah, kind of, I wouldn't call it distraction, but kind of a uniting evil that players can come together and defeat. And we purposefully, in-game mechanics, designed some elements that needed parts of Vicarian culture and parts from Garmontian culture as well. So we made sure that people had to come together to cooperate.
What percentage...
I also saw a question...
Sorry, you go, Jess. I was going to say, August wants to know how many of the people who played the games actually did the workshops.
That's a great question. I think we had...
And how many do you think you needed to make that work?
I think at the most we had about 93 out of 162. So what's that?
60,
I'm bad at
70%?
70%. And I think that was...
70%.
Yeah, I think that is probably...
It's quite high.
It's very high. It's what you need, I think, for a game of this scale. And about roughly 30% of our players are brand new to not just Dance of Ribbons, but to LARPing.
But to LARP in general, yeah.
So having people who are properly, I guess, onboarded into like the experience is really important. So I would say actually 70% is like a good number.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
One of the things that, because we don't have workshops at the moment, but I'm interested in them. We do have kind of an onboarding process that you can take if you want, which is the new blood idea, in which you can just have a little ribbon on. You don't have to know too much of the law or anything like that. You're kind of in a protected state, like an introductory tutorial kind of experience as you're going around, just seeing what's up. And also, if you just don't want to be too involved, you can just have a drink, be in character, and just watch kind of thing. Do you have anything like that during your event? Is there a way in which, like, people who haven't been able or didn't go to the workshops can just turn up and have a more introductory experience?
No, we don't have a visual signifier like that. We very much relied on the community and the other players to kind of onboard the brand new players. But because we had a list of people who were like brand new, we could actually, and we had so many NPCs, we could actually very specifically ask the NPCs to like put a little bit more effort or a bit more love into like this player so that they have a good time.
It's a great question. Let's extend that to the other LARPs, Rob. What about for new players at Black Powder?
Deep end, good luck.
Okay. No, that's a fine response. My follow-up
from a
question
technical
to that
perspective,
is
deep end, good luck.
From a design point of view, why?
It wasn't really deep end good luck. It wasn't really.
Coward.
So we
Stand by your decisions.
we had a fairly hands-on onboarding process for players, and basically what happened is anytime we saw a name we didn't recognize, we went out of our way to find them out of character and meet them, get to know them, help them through the character generation process, help them create their characters. And while the 100-something participants we had made that hard, I'm pretty sure we managed it with active check-ins and rather than a sort of systematized approach, we just sort of looked out for people at our game who we didn't recognize, we didn't know, and gave them assistance. And we also, in the resource game, attempted to make everyone valuable so that they would get the attention of the more experienced players
Yeah.
with their resources. Ivan?
Rob, didn't you have an just to ask there?
Yeah.
Didn't Black Banner and Bloodlines have a two-tiered kind of system though, with the whole blooded idea, where basically people could step into a more hardcore experience?
You know, I forgot about that. Yeah, we had
Yeah, they did.
we had secret Supermans
Highlander.
who turned out to actually be secret vampires once the players understood. Well, when the
Oh,
players looked
really?
at them. Yeah, they're called the Blooded. They're supposed to
I
be.
thought they were vampires from the start.
Yeah, because blood is involved, right? But
I didn't. Oh,
They,
okay.
they were Highlanders, not vampires, because they
Yes.
couldn't predate
That's
on
what it
people
is.
that weren't their own kind.
that's right. Yeah, and
I specifically honeypotted somebody with that. So
yeah, and to bring it back to Ivan's question, we just didn't let new players play that because it was you're gonna fucking die. That's the experience that we were offering the
Yeah.
Blooded. You're gonna die. Good luck. If you, but yeah, sorry, I'm fading a bit, and I will have to leave soon. But that's
All right.
that's what we do.
No, I find it incredibly, because it's a kind of an inverse approach to what we have, where you can kind of opt into a simpler role, whereas you've got something where you get to opt into something much more like it's the real deep end.
The trick
Yeah.
was that actually it was our excuse to see a bunch of nobles get their heads cut off.
I mean,
Because the idea being that the nobility of Europe has blood running through their veins, which makes them special, which makes them powerful, which makes them a target. Sorry, I'm rambling.
no, you're good, and I think that's interesting. We want to do. I want to let you go because I know you're recovering from recent major surgery. I want to hear from Gavin about new players at Revenant's End and new players to Caligo in general. I want to hear from Desney because I think about half the Hobbit Hoedown players, it's like their first LARP or some number like that, and it's interesting to discuss that. And I want to talk to the faders in general because I know we've sort of gone off that. It is 9:30, which is when I said we would take a break, and when I said we would let Robert go and have some bed rest from surgery. So, Rob, do you have anything you want to tell everyone in the next, you got 3 minutes of the stage, and then the rest of it, and then we'll all go take a break.
Yeah,
and then
cool.
We'll come back with the rest of that stuff.
Excellent. Thank you very much for facilitating. So far, it's been wonderful to see everyone. It's been wonderful to meet Jess. So I will peace out with a last defense of the mixing desk. I did see in chat a few people are saying it's needlessly binary.
No, it's
and
deliberately binary. It's not needless. Sorry.
Yeah, because it's like a decade old. It was a decade old technology when we used it and we stole it, and it's a 20-year-old technology now. But the reason I will continue to advocate for it, and the reason I will continue to make all new LARP rights go through it, is because not because it is good, but because it is bad. The point of looking at the mixing desk is purely to say there is no such thing as a good decision or a bad decision when designing your LARP. What's a good game for a linear fantasy buffer LARP where you're all in the same team and you're all walking down a path and you're all hitting orcs? That's not going to be the same suite of decisions that's going to work for a vampire game, Melbourne by Night, or anything along those lines. There is no objective best LARP. There is no objective good decision. The entire point is to make you sit down in a room with your entire team and argue about what you are going to do and why you are going to do it. And then Once you've finished arguing about it and you've realized that actually the slider of linear to freeform is wrongly labeled, or the slider of immersion is going to change at different times in your game, or the slider of conflict is going to be this way for one group of people and this way for another group of people, you're blooded and you're not blooded, for example. Once you've made all of those decisions, you write it all down and then you refer back to it later. So you go, oh, what were we trying to achieve with this? Did it work? After every game, you go back to your mixing deck settings and you go, we didn't pick a number out of 5 for this. We, drew a star and a tentacle. Did we achieve star and tentacle? Or did we achieve a number out of 5? And that gets into continuous improvement, which is another topic for another day.
This is excellent work, Rob.
Even more important than that, is that sitting down, when you start working on your LARP, when you start working on a project that's going to take years of and off your life, literally in some cases, when you sit down and start working on that with a group of people, you get to see how the group works together. You get to see how the group discusses all of these topics, where everyone sits on the different approaches, how everyone works together, who doesn't work together well, and you get that full picture of your organization and you get to put it in the fire and shape it into something. And the bonus of having a tool that you can look back on and make your game better is just that. It's a bonus. The point is the discussion, not the outcomes.
It's like
The live... Now I've turned on my mic. Okay, welcome back everybody. We are talking about art requiring sacrifice. We are talking about trade-offs in LARP design. Robert from Black Powder has had to leave, but we do have fabulous guests here with us. We have Ivan from Black Powder from Midnight in Melbourne. We have Gavin from Revenant's End and Watchers of Easthaven. We have Jess from Dance of Ribbons. We have Desney from The Hobbit's Hoedown. And we have me, who is a nobody who doesn't matter. And I would like to thank Feral Cryptid for following us. And...
our bold host.
I'm such a bold host.
Hey Josie,
Yes, Ivan.
is the fact that Rob's gone one of the themes of sacrifice that you have tonight? Who's going to go next?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm gonna just start murdering you all off screen.
Good luck.
Yeah, no, we'll see how that goes. But the key, Ivan, you had a thing that you brought up off screen that I told you to stop talking about and talk about on screen. Would you like to do that right now?
Yes, I wanted to ask Jess about because of the fact that Dance of Ribbons is ended now. What are you taking from that? Would you, well, for one thing, would you do another LARP? What would it be? How would it be? Similar to the one that you've just done? Would it be very different? Are you looking to spread your wings into some other direction, or do you think you've got a kind of template that deserves being looked at further?
Oh my god. I gotta be careful about what I say. I personally feel really inspired by LARP as an art form. I'm gonna be totally taking everything that I've learnt from it and bringing it into my theatre practice, my theatre portfolio. In terms of if I would ever make a LARP again, maybe. Maybe I'll be a part of it. But I think I realised, and this is something that Rob touched on briefly before he left, I loved working with the team, and I don't think I would want to make a LARP without that team, because no words can describe how beautifully we worked together. And it was this negotiation, this dance of creative minds coming together. So if I do make another LARP, it would be with those guys. But yeah,
Cute.
I think keep an eye on the space, because a Dance Ribbons might turn into something else, like our team. And that's all I'll say.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Lord Tommy H, for the follow. And just very quickly, because I am on Twitch and it's important to follow the platform, please subscribe to our channel. If you would like to hear more from Immersive Arts Melbourne, please join the mailing list. We're going to chuck that link in the chat. Also, because Will is super cool and keeps track of all of the LARPs in Melbourne and Victoria, statewide, we thought it would be cool if we could just have a list of LARPs instead of having to know Will and ask him what's coming up. You could just click on a button and it would tell you what LARPs are up. And so I bought viclarp.au and I put a calendar on it, and the calendar is essentially just Will's event calendar. So it's pretty exciting. Click the viclarp.au. You can subscribe to the Google Calendar if you use Google Calendar. Otherwise, feel free to just click it whenever you want to know what's going on or what's going on in a particular time. Why would anyone want to avoid that, Neve? No one would ever. Here's a delight. So,
By the way, I'm very thankful to have that around too, because one of the things I think LARP is becoming much more popular in Melbourne, and immersive theatre is becoming much more popular as well. And it's very hard for us as designers to know what else is on so that you don't conflict with other events.
yeah.
So I'm very glad that you've done that, to be honest, because we know that we have a regular schedule, but like if we're on the same week as, say, Hobbit's Hoedown or something like that, that's something that we don't want to have, because we'd like to go to other events and the like as well.
Exactly.
So thanks for that.
You're very welcome. And that was the key thing. Well, that, and also like wanting to be able to divest from social media and still be aware of events, right? So
We should make a calendar. We should actually make a calendar, like, with pictures from the various LARPs and stuff.
if you would like to add pictures to all the various laps, please, let's do it. I'm in. Let's put it on the calendar. Amazing.
The
Okay.
LARP sexy firefighter calendar. Great.
Look,
Designers of LARP.
conflicts are inevitable, and when there are like 3 games running weekly, like you're always going to conflict with the battle games at least, if nothing else. But let's do. We told everyone we were going to talk about the faders. We have not really talked about the faders. And Jess has to leave very soon. We're going to lose Jess. So let's be like, Jess, would you like to pick one of the faders and discuss it?
I would love to. I've got them written down.
Incredible. You can choose one of these ones or one of the Interactive Arts Melbourne different ones. It's up to you.
I think we've kind of already talked about it, but like the meta techniques were so important to a Dance of Ribbons.
Oh, yeah.
And we used a lot. Whilst also trying to maintain like a very close immersive experience.
So let's
I
talk
think one of
about
those
meta
meta-
techniques. What do you mean by
Yeah.
that?
One of those meta techniques was like the witnesses quite literally being our GMs, for those who didn't come, quite literally being like the embodiment of magic in the world, and having to separate and understand that as a player, and then the character responding in a way that believes and like totally believes in that being real. We used a lot of meta techniques, and I think also in our major theatrical moments as well, we had a huge fogger machine that created fog across the entire hill, and that, like, you know, the player mind absolutely knows exactly what that is. Like, that's just a smoke machine, but what the characters can then experience is a mysterious fog rolls over the land, and something terrible happens, and magic works its deviousness on the world. I think meta techniques for Dance Ribbons were really important in terms of creating, like, weirdly an immersive experience.
No, absolutely an immersive experience, though, right? And I think that also ties into, like, what Ivan's talking about earlier with the different lighting colors symbolizing, like, this is a thing that's happening.
Yeah, well, I think something that Jess and I both have in common there is that we're both coming from theatre backgrounds, and we're trying to incorporate more of these theatre principles into our into these LARPs. I like even our nomenclature, we use that rather than gaming terms. So yes, definitely the use of lighting, sound. We also have a theme song for each event as well, which always brings in a witching hour. Like Red Right Hand was used one time. The last event was Temptation by the Tea Party, because our theme was temptation.
Love that song. All right.
Yeah, it's great. Like we have different theme songs that we use in each one, because we're trying to promote the thematic principles for each event as well. So yes, our lighting and sound are heavily important, but also things like because we have a bar going on. We want people to be spending money at the bar. That's how the bar gets their money. So when people go up to the bar staff, we want the bar staff to be able to interact with them. And the bar staff have rumor cards, little rumor cards that they have, and when you buy a drink, you get given a rumor, and that might explore some more of the world. And people start. It was something I just did as a way to get people to go up to the bar to begin with. But then people really grew to like them. They started trading them, they keep them, and that became something like. And then it infects the story. Yeah, like, at one stage, there was just a little rumor that we had that there's a werewolf in disguise here. There wasn't, but suddenly that became a huge thing. Everyone was looking for the damn dog, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's become its own experience, to the degree that we have, like, little secret messages written on them, invisible ink, that some people can discover with little, like, UV lights and things like that. But yeah, we have quite, like, the roses. I mentioned our roses before. There are certain performers who can get tarot. We're working on a tarot deck. Elm, my collaborator, is amazing. And we're designing a Midnight in Melbourne, Vampire Melbourne tarot. So, and certain things can only work on or against people who have those tarot. So how do we show people that they have those? We have little badges for people. Those meta techniques are ways in which we can show people what's important, who's important, why. We have microphones that we use at times, and only certain people have permission to use the microphones, so that when they say something, it comes through the audience. I fade in and out the sound depending on what's going on out in the room, in the space. These are all important stuff for us.
Absolutely.
We had a lot of discussions about teaching our players kind of like cues to do a certain thing, and so that when the cue happened in gameplay, actually within context, they knew what to do. And yeah, I think it's kind of similar to, like, just responding to, like, what they how they're playing and, like, what they want as well. So sending that cue out when it's appropriate or when, you know, it's meant to happen. Like, yeah.
Absolutely. Meta techniques, Destiny, and then Gavin?
Oh gosh. I mean, look, all of our set dressing definitely helps sort of have an immersive quality to everything. But I would say that something that we harness is trying to infiltrate our community in sort of more discreet ways or not so discreet ways, I suppose. Our family heads, for example, are an example of this, where we felt our players couldn't always sort of express themselves freely or in a really comfortable and easygoing way to just the directives, even though we love to talk to our players. So we would essentially go through our minds, would go through our mind palace, and we would see whether or not we could think of players who were exemplary at bringing other people into their gameplay and heading up like an encouraging, infectious like role play with each other. And we wanted them to notice wallflowers and bring them into the space a little bit more. And we ensured that we there was a familial feeling of closeness within the family that would then eventually play out through natural behaviors of gameplay. And yeah, so we essentially would seek out what we would call talent, and sort of tell them like, you're so good, like we love you and we love how you play, and we think you're an ideal role model for all these folks that deserve to know you and deserve to play with you. And we think that if we give you the responsibility, that people will respond well to you because we've seen it already. And in that way, along with the workshops, we hope that that sort of triangulates players to sort of act and play in a certain way and feel close to the other players in the game. So, yeah, I suppose that's mostly how we deal with our meta techniques of things. Unless anyone can think of or point out other ways in which you think the Hobbit's Hoedown achieves that.
No, I mean, I would have thought of like the family trees or like the post office.
Yeah.
Or maybe the key, like the judges for the various competitions being the people who had the tag for their family, and being like, yes, that is the representative of the Bluffwaters, and they're supporting this pie. And right.
Absolutely.
Gavin?
I think that
Sorry, Desi,
I was going to just to add on with the post office specifically, or any of the like activities that we plan. We always think about like I said in our previous chat about the Hobbit's Hoedown. Whenever we plan any kind of activities, we hope that they will bring like a sense of nostalgia, and they always face players towards each other, because the main thing that we want our players to be doing is interacting with each other when they're not choosing to relax in any way that they would like to. And so when play happens, it's within the confines essentially of like a tableau that we create very specifically. And the post office itself is a really kind of passive way to do that, where we like people love sending letters to each other. So we wanted to further people's like feeling of like reaching out to people And it's just fun to receive handwritten letters like that. So like the
really
feeling
is.
of it is really important to us. So we try
Can I ask you
as much as
about that?
always. Yeah, we try as much as always to try and think about like how will it make a player feel to be a part of this. So yeah.
Mm. Um,
Do you have the opportunity for people to send letters that they received after the event's finished? So, for instance, they write a letter to your character, but it's actually sent to your home address, and in a couple of weeks, they can receive that letter at their home from a character they met there, and that would be a nice thing at home. Do you do that as well?
I mean, we don't specifically facilitate that. However, we do like I don't collect everyone's letters in a little bag and then trot down to the post office and send them myself. But we do encourage our players out of character to send letters like they are pen pals. I myself have one of our family heads from just the event past was a player from the previous game, and I ended up sending her an elaborate sort of parcel. She sent me an elaborate parcel back, and it was a good
adorable.
way to sort of engage in character, create closeness, um, and for other players as well, because I know that a lot of people just sort of jumped on that bandwagon and they were like, let's send each other letters. So people have indeed sent each other physical letters through the actual snail mail,
It's so good.
which is delightful. Yeah.
Gavin, meta techniques in Revenant's End.
Yeah. Um, so we do some of the various bits and pieces, particularly as Des was mentioning, these things of pushing pillars of the community, the folks that really get your game, towards new players
Mm.
is also one of those tried and true uh, methods of looping new players into the game and helping to establish the culture. If you are pulled into the group that understands the game and the culture and what's going on, you're much more likely to follow along with that and make stories that involve those peoples. And you somewhat manage to short circuit a chunk of those folks that might otherwise go a little bit rogue. Um, it's not always 100%, but it is a nice way to also welcome people into the community. We do specifically for our first couple of games, we had a fairly strong focus on spotlight control. We broke the player base up into much smaller groups and identified the folks, particularly who were new to the game, and made sure that they all got a chance, well, hopefully, all got a chance to use their abilities and introduce their characters and show why they were good and useful to the community so that the people around them would then go, I'm going to grab that person into this storyline. I know they saved our ass from the horrible not a deer out in the forest. I'm going to ask them to come and escort us on this mission. In terms of other sort of metatextual stuff, we do have various signifiers within the game. We specifically asked players not to bring gun props because we're running in a public library.
Yeah.
Uh, we were like, hey, it's really cool to get and customize a Nerf gun. But rather than litigate what looks too real and what's going to get us in trouble, we just said, please don't. Instead, we've got bright red bandanas that everybody who is armed wears where their gun is. If it's a derringer that fits in a pocket, the bandana gets stuffed in a pocket. If it's a six shooter that sits on a hip, the bandana gets looped around a belt loop. If it's a rifle over the back, it goes over the back. And that lets people see that these characters are armed. It lets them do the thing of I brush a coat aside to show that I've got a six shooter, that I'm carrying iron and not afraid to use it, those types of things. We have a mechanic for revelations within the world. We have little tokens that get given out to people when they hit moments of traumatic realizations that the world doesn't work the way they thought it did. And those are currency for certain abilities. But I would be remiss to not mention the most meta thing that we have done, and that is one of our talents has no description for what the talent is. It just has an encoded piece of arcane script. We did not tell our players what this did. We let some of them dive deep into the deciphering of it, and even when they did, it didn't have any game mechanics attached to it. They did all of this before character creation, and 10 players still took that talent.
Amazing.
That great.
I love that.
I'm interested in knowing more about your revelation system. We had something which we called the revelation system. We've just changed it to what we call the omen system.
But
There's
trauma is
an ability that
currency.
trauma is currency. Yeah.
Yeah. So we built Revelations because it's a weird West world, right? Things are supposed to be strange and horrifying, and things as further out you go west, the weirder they are. So the people who are sheltered from the cities don't necessarily know or truly understand the deep darkness that is on the frontier of this place. We wanted a sanity mechanic without the baggage of a sanity mechanic, because so many of those systems that we find in published, right, they're not great, and we wanted a thing that represented that thing of you have shifted the way the world works. It also has the added benefit of going, well, this is the reason the saloon and the brothel exist, because they help the player characters get over these moments, ground them back in reality, give them a touch point to remove those revelations. Revelations also adversely affect players' ability to do their skill draws. Specifically, the mechanic that we've got there is it's blackjack. So you draw 2 cards. If you have 1 revelation, you draw 3 cards. If you have 2 revelations, you're drawing 4 cards. If you have 3, you're drawing 5, and it's now a nightmare to try and get anything done under 21.
Yeah.
And so
it's a revelation. Is it a revelation of the world or a revelation of the self?
It can be either. It's purely up to the GM discretion at that moment, and the number that are given out for any particular event is at GM discretion as well.
Okay. So I wanna get to the faders that we said we were going to spend the whole night talking about. And no, I think the key point was we're going to get a bunch of nerds who wrote some LARPs together. But, talk
about design decisions.
Let's talk about design decisions. Let's talk about linear versus freeform. Alternately, linear versus sandbox, where one end of the fader, and this is, as all the faders are, non-binary. It's not one or the other. It's a fader from a perfectly linear game in which the characters simply step through the steps as designed by the player, the designer, and they make no choices that are relevant to what their experience is, and they experience the thing. Like a perfectly linear experience is a movie, right? Whereas a perfectly sandbox or a perfectly freeform experience is an open field with nothing in it.
Would it be fair to call this scripted versus sandbox?
Yeah. Like, we call it linear versus freeform because Rob wrote this at a time when those were the primary types of role-playing game in Victoria. Well, I mean, at the time, when we wrote this a decade ago, or when Rob wrote this a decade ago, we were contrasting Philosopher's Guild against a con freeform, right?
Yeah, no, I get that. That's what
But
that's what LRP. Like back when I first began, there was LRP and there was freeform role play. Now
yeah,
they're both just called LARP.
now they're
Yeah, yeah,
all called LARP, right? And we
yeah.
put
Cool.
the battle games in the same box.
Yeah,
Um,
I understand this a lot more now. Yeah, gotcha.
but I think it is probably better off calling it scripted versus sandbox. And I think that I would really like to talk about like how you make this decision and how we make this on an event by event basis, particularly for the dance, because the dance had different, very clearly different fader settings between 1 and 2 and 3 on this particular fader. And I also think that all of these are great, right? Like, I think I've played excellent purely scripted games. I've played excellent purely sandbox. No, I don't think I've played pure on any of those, but I've played high scripted games and I've played high sandbox games, and I very much enjoyed all of that. And as always, what I think is the most important thing is that there is an artist deciding. Um, So let's talk about scripted versus sandbox and how you guys made that choice for your games. It is, sorry, Daniel, it is related to how much agency players have, is not entirely how much agency players have. Like, agency, in a purely scripted game, players do not have agency, really. Or they have only the agency written into the game. Whereas, like, you can script a game where players can destroy it or save it or secret third choice, and players have agency in that they can pick one of the available options, but that's still all scripted, right? Whereas a sandbox game doesn't have a script, it doesn't have those choices. It has a bunch of choices available, but you can run a purely sandbox game where the players don't have agency. It's the NPCs that have agency, right? Or the results of the battles determine what happens, or whatever. So it's related to how much agency players have. I don't think it's quite the same. There's a pedantic difference there. But yeah, so let's talk about scripting versus sandbox. We'll begin with Jess, then we'll go to Des, and then we'll go to Gavin, and then we'll go to Ivan, and then we'll come back to the next thing. Go.
Okay. We it was all of our first times creating a LARP in 2023. Literally every person on the team had never made a LARP before. And so when we were writing it, a lot of us came at it with a theatre perspective. And so we were like, what's a setting that we can give people that they can just do long form improv in, basically, was the brief. And so it had a way more sandboxy vibe. Obviously, from the very beginning, David was like, he knew that it was a trilogy. He knew that there was going to be kind of a story arc, I suppose you could call it. But in terms of specifics being scripted for either players or NPCs or the world at large, it was so purely responsive. And that word responsive is, I'm going to credit David for that one because he's written his PhD on that and how LARPs need to respond to its players. And so in our second year, we tried something different. We were like, okay, we've done a very sandboxy vibe. Maybe in the second year, let's do some more structured events and we'll put more in. And that was just a very completely different vibe. It felt very full. We had a lot going on and we had a lot of moments that were predetermined before the event even started. And so by the third year, we realized that we could find a balance between like both of these things. And so this year we knew the overarching story now. We had our wonderful player community had created these storylines that we could then build off and incorporate back into the world and fold it back into the mix. So this final year, actually for the players, was like kind of barely scripted, but we knew what their final decision, what we wanted their final decision to be.
Yeah.
Not to give too much of a peek behind the curtain, but we knew how we wanted to end it, and kind of we were aware that after 3 years of playing the same character, there were some people out there who needed to like say goodbye properly. So we wanted to make sure our final event was really special in that way, and actually treated our players with like the gentleness of saying goodbye to someone that they've played for years.
And I think that's this example of it also discusses that thing between agency and script, where from a personal character point of view, in that third game we each had a lot of agency, but from a like what the overall big story is going to do, the players essentially had a choice between two things, right?
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
I think that's very fair to say. And agency actually wraps into, I would say, the mechanics of the world, which as a team, we loved it when our players just broke our mechanics. And we loved it when people made really cool choices, and then we could, on the fly, just be like, all right, that's cool. That can happen. Let's make this happen. X, Y, Z. Yeah.
Destiny, let's talk about, because the Hoedown is a very interesting example of scripted versus sandbox, right? Because it's a game that is extremely freeform, but also extremely scripted in terms of the important events of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we kind of try and balance sort of curating these scenes essentially, and then the role play to happen there within. But we also will see players sort of bring things to the game. And we want our players, importantly as well, to feel empowered to bring their sort of creative flair to the game as well.
Yeah.
So we truly believe in it, in empowering our players. So whenever we see something neat happen, we try and point it out and say like, hey, how can we help you? How can we add to how you actually contribute to our game and contribute to other people's play? But yeah, so we have, I think, a what do you call it? An interesting sort of like open space for our players that has like a really loose structure.
Yeah.
But mostly the idea behind it is that like we're kind of interested in what our players do. We kind of want to see what happens. We want to see what shenanigans go down. Heavy on the shenanigans, actually. So we're super interested in seeing how our players respond to the stimulus that we offer them, and how they interact with each other. We think that when our players bring something to the game, such as the stamp rally that was mentioned in our last talk as well, where that was something that was completely player driven, and I saw the potential of it mostly because it's such a social thing to do, where you get to go around sort of completing this stamp rally, and all of the ways that you have to get these stamps is completely socially engineered. So it really it's like, and all of those things, including the hoedown itself, which is at the end of the Saturday night where everyone dances together. It's all to create this feeling of familiarity, of warmth. And if we start to get a little bit, like, if someone cheats, for example, like, we allow cheating at our game, as long as it's actually open and everyone can see that it's happening, because it has to still serve the game in some kind of way. So we will allow for people to cheat at our lawn games as long as it's entertaining, because we believe that all of the play should involve everyone, and therefore the purpose of cheating should be for the core of entertainment, for the bit, essentially. Everything's for the bit.
Right? But that's August made a very good point where they've said it's not so much scripted as it is scheduled, where it is like it has a firm schedule, but like this thing is happening at this time, but there's no script for that thing. Like and we can contrast that with LARPs that have cutscenes, right? And I'm a big, I do believe in the LARP cutscene. We can see it. I mean, Watchers used it, and a bunch of games have used it. But like, Dance used it very effectively, and I think some of the best LARP cutscenes that I've seen have been at the Dance. But like, The Hobbits doesn't have cutscenes, but it does have bits where everyone has to go and be at this space at this time.
Yeah, I think the closest we have to a cutscene is maybe things like the wedding that took place this year. It was, or the show and tell, but it is like they're all opportunities. Yeah, but they're all opportunities to either move with each other, or to be part of performance, or to witness performance. And so they're all just avenues in which that people have an opportunity to present character in some sort of way, and for everyone to respond. And it is like something as I guess, like I said, I think the closest thing we've gotten to a cutscene is maybe the show and tell, where everyone's just sat literally in an audience and they're watching everyone come up onto a stage and sing a song or recite a poem or what have you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like,
cutscene, right? Like, that's what you're
and
doing.
in a way. But if you as the audience are both playing an audience, you are also performing being an audience. Anyways.
We love it. We love it. We're here for
it. It really is like the matter of like being like LARP in the first place, I suppose, is both being inside of the audience witnessing the scene, and also being a participant in the scene. And it's really funny how we sort of balance that in the Hobbit's Hoedown, because of the nature of the entire thing, is that you will both at times be both audience and participant at any given time, and it all adds to the fun of the game. So
yeah. Gavin, then Ivan.
Yeah. I mean, 100% agree with Des on that. I think it is the beauty of LARP that everybody is both audience and author simultaneously.
Yeah.
You are collaboratively telling the story. There is a thing that some of us have been saying for quite some time, that LARP is not a spectator sport. You don't get to sit back and watch. You are in the story. You might have moments where you are watching somebody go off on a rant or having a duel.
I think that's a discussion, that question.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, no, sorry, go on.
Absolutely, there's definitely room for that. But it is inherently that thing of, you might be sitting back and watching two people having a duel, but if it spills out and you get involved in it, that's it. You're not watching anymore. and that is always present.
Or even when
answer
you
the-
are just watching, you're playing your character, just watching, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. To more properly answer the question, particularly as far as Revenants goes, we have to adjust this session by session. Our first session had some very scripted end type things. We had little encounters, and particularly address the thing that Will asked in chat. A game that is heavy on that scripted end thing, what that looks like is Watchers of East Haven that we ran, where players moved from encounter A to encounter B to encounter C, and even if at encounter C they chose between left or right, they ended up at encounter D.
Yeah.
Because we had
Encounter D just
NPCs
looks slightly
set
different.
out in the park to go and have a fight there.
Yeah.
So there was no way around those things. But for Revenants, it is this thing of we want the players to have the capacity to choose where they're going, to have what they're doing, but the world is also an actor. And the world imposes certain things here or there, whether it's the sheriff leading a particular mission or pulling out a gun, whether it's a storm that may or may not be landing in the next event. These little moments are the world acting, and then the players have to react to those things. So they are those like fronts, whether you're thinking of them as battle fronts or storm fronts, it doesn't really matter. But they will roll in at certain points. The exact point varies from game to game and moment to moment, so that we can push it where it's appropriate. If somebody's having a dramatic scene, we might hold off for a little bit, or if it's gone quiet, then we push something a little bit earlier to keep the engagement with the story going.
I was going to ask a question, but you answered it. Ivan, scripted versus sandbox. Where does Midnight in Melbourne fall?
I think that as much as we talk about having a theatrical style, when it comes down to it, a lot of what we're asking of people is more closely to pro wrestling. And I think that role players and role-playing designers can learn a lot from pro wrestling.
We can
Pro
all.
wrestling
I
is
think
just melodrama.
politics
Design.
can learn a lot from pro wrestling, and I think if the
Yeah,
Democrats
well,
in the US had watched more pro wrestling,
I'm
Trump
not going
wouldn't
to
have
touch on
won.
the political
Anyway.
thing because, Donald Trump's in the WWE
He's a pro
Hall of
wrestling.
Fame.
He's one of the
Yeah,
best
he's
at
very
it,
important.
right? Anyway,
but when it comes down to it, just like theater, like you can set up the stage and coach your actors and tell them what you want as much as you want. But and you can do the same in the wrestling ring. You can say you're going to win. You're going to do this. This is how they can plan it out. But if something goes wrong or someone goes off script, someone wants it with live theater and with like pro wrestling, like things can just go wrong and go their own direction, and you need to run with that. You need to be able to run with that. That's the beauty of live performance. That's why I've always loved theater over like stage over screen, and role playing as a form is very much in the idea as a storytelling medium, subject to the whim and flavor and style of the performers. We do have a we set people up with something. We give a largely linear approach, but we then give them a lot of freedom and have to work with it. For instance, we need to be out of our venue at a certain time, so I know that we want to be hitting certain beats. I want to bring in an intermission at a certain time, so we want to have a way in which our first act finishes and our second act begins. The whole fact that we're a 2-act structure rather than a 3-act structure, and role playing is hooked on this
We love
idea
the
of the
3-act
3-act
structure.
structure.
We do.
Yeah, everyone does. And I don't
It's
think
so
it
good.
particularly works for role playing.
It's
I
funny you
don't know
say
because
that.
the reason why I say that is because most of what makes a role-playing game interesting is consequences of actions, and the 3-act structure is designed about the idea that the climax happens right near the end. I think, and
Yeah.
World of Darkness freeforms were classically an issue. They called it the 10 o'clock monster, where the first it'd be a 3-hour game. In the first hour, people are just starting to get involved. They're doing the second hour is where things are getting interesting, and in the third act you have a big the
The
exciting
10
thing
o'clock
happens at a big one,
monster,
but
yeah.
you don't get a denouement. And the idea, what really is exciting, and then things go over time, but you have to wrap up the denouement. Ideally, make that climax happen in the first act. Is my idea. Really,
Okay.
we need to be able to deal with the
hang on.
consequences of that big issue, because that's where the role playing happens.
Stop there. That is actually genuinely fascinating. I want to address the 3 people who started shouting at you when you said that 3-act structure doesn't work in role playing. Who would like to go first?
I'll go, but I think I agree. I agree that you need time for the response. But the way that we structured A Dance of Ribbons was kind of, I guess, in that 3-act structure. Like, it was like the first day, the setting up, the context and everything. The first day, and then the second day, something absolutely terrible and horrible happens, and then the third day is dealing with the consequences. But we always
you had the third and fourth day dealing with the consequences.
The fourth day, which was that like breath away from it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think when we tried to deviate from that in the second year, it wasn't as satisfying for players. Although that's a very broad statement. Obviously, people had very different experiences. But for us, at least as designers, we realized it just wasn't as satisfying in terms of like closure and everything. So that we returned back to that structure in the third dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Des?
I mean, look, I think that if you break the Hobbit's Hoedown down into acts, it would be that Friday night, the Saturday, and the Sunday. But it is supposed to follow basically what are the beats of like a party, where you spend the entire day having this party. There's like the nighttime thing as well. But the Friday is everyone sort of arriving and having dinner with each other for the first time. Like the first thing that you do together as hobbits is eat and see each other. So we've got that first night, and it feels like yeah, everyone's come from the townships that they're from, and they've all met in the middle where the county moot is, so that they can go to the party. Then you've got the Saturday, and then of course you have Sunday, which acts as the morning after the party. And we felt that it was those beats follow the natural progression of something, an event like this, or of a party. Yeah, essentially, of like everyone having a bender and then getting up the next day to have breakfast together, just sort of staring into the distance and trying not to make too much noise and drinking a little bit more water for that day. But no, we felt that I feel that kind of fits into a 3-act structure a little bit. And it has different moods to it as well, which expresses differently throughout.
Can I ask you a question? Wouldn't that be more like a 5-act structure?
Wouldn't it though?
Because your Saturday would have 3 different acts over the course of the day. It's a much longer day.
Yeah.
It is.
It feels like Act 1 Friday, Acts 2 through 4 Saturday, Act 5
morning,
Sunday.
afternoon, evening.
And that was how we
Yeah.
structured the Watchers weekends, except we did them on 4, where we did.
I think maybe at most you could probably break the Saturday into 2 parts, actually. So you've got the daytime and then you've got the nighttime. I think that they have 2 different moods, whereas the day feels like it's it's one bit of time, if that makes sense, even though there's scheduled things that are happening
Yeah.
and people are moving from place to place physically. I think the mood or the ambiance
No,
of
there's
the
this
environment
day,
is dictated by that.
Saturday day, Saturday night, right? They're
Yeah.
the two.
Yeah.
Correct.
Gavin.
Yeah. Oh goodness, where to begin? Not to dive too deep into a decade-old learning about narrative structure and such things, and
Oh, but
potentially
please do.
talking out of my butt.
That's what they're here for.
The three-act structure is a very particular thing. It has very specific beats, and it really doesn't work for every story. A lot of people try and apply it to every story, and it just is not a good fit for it. Certain games that want to have that like heroic arc, usually embodied in the hero's journey, which is the classic three-act structure, fit fairly well because it is a very familiar thing that sits nicely in your players' minds of I understand the escalation. I know where this is going.
Yeah.
If it's done well, you have those moments of return to the real world and the final sort of moments of resolution that are supposed to be in that story with enough time to play out. Timing that is a whole different question. But I do think it is a thing that people should not feel yoked to.
Yeah.
And should not necessarily try and fit all of that. Like, if you're running an event over 3 days, that doesn't necessarily mean you're running a three-act structure.
No.
There are plenty of wonderful story experiences that are single acts. It is about understanding what these specific tonal breaks mean for your story and whether or not they're applicable.
Okay, so let's cut from there to Ivan's 2 acts, which Ivan says is the perfect LARP.
No. I don't say it's a perfect.
The only good LARP. I'm sorry. The only possible LARP is.
I am not saying that at all. I am not saying that at all. Take those words out of my mouth, put them on the floor, and rub them in the dirt, and then shove them back in your own mouth, you dirty mouth swine. No, I did not say that. That's
No, I didn't.
There is no such.
I didn't mean to imply that it was true that you said those things.
But definitely for me, like I definitely wanted to play with the theatrical process I was looking at. I eventually wanted to go into the 2-act structure more because I'm sure Jess would agree with me. Most theatre production, most modern theatre productions, you're doing a musical.
You were yelling at me for putting words in people's mouths. Sorry.
No, like I'll ask Jess there. Like the 2-act structure is really important for a lot of modern theatre. If you go to most of the big shows in town, they're going to be 2-act.
What's the 2-act structure?
When it comes up down to it, very, very simply, it's setup and consequence. It's as simple as that. With jokes, you get the idea of the rule of 3.
Like basic comedy, right?
With jokes, you can also have the rule of 2. So we just like there's the setup, and then there's the punchline.
Yeah.
Simple as that. If you want to look at it like that.
Sure.
So the one follows from the other. And in a lot of ways, they are 2 1-act structures put together. In a lot of processes. What I really wanted more than anything was just to avoid what I'd seen in a lot of other vampire experiences I've had in the past, where everything was building to a moment right at the end. And we still have that, like getting people to act quickly, to do something really strongly quickly is hard to do. And we still have situations where right when we're kind of wanting to finish up and looking at our watches and trying to get something resolved happening, people have left it to the last minute we want people to act quicker so that the consequences of their actions are important. That's really what I want to see. I don't want to see the death of Caesar at the end of the play. I want to see the death of Caesar halfway through Act 1. So then we can deal with what happens to the Republic.
So that's a great point. And as somebody who spent 15 years playing LARPs where we would have the death of Caesar at the end and then everyone would go home. And then at the next game there would be a completely different Caesar to deal with, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm aware that we're running out of time for this panel, but we have... I think it's really one of the things that I've been thinking about as an artist and as a consumer of art is endings. And endings that were designed from the start, endings that were designed that just happened. Because I don't know, for my major LARPs that I ran Zeppelin, and we had a set end. We had, like a vague number of games and a vague story arc, but we had we're going to start roughly here, we're going to end roughly there. Or we knew the start, we knew the end, we didn't know what was happening in the middle. And Watches of Easthaven, where we started out with a very general, just let's go. And then when we all burned out, we're like, okay, let's do an ending episode. And I think in this group, we've got LARPs that are very across that scale, right? And so let's start with Jess. The Dance of Ribbons was always conceived as a trilogy. You ran it as a trilogy. You ran your 3 games. You ran a couple of in-between games. Why? And would you do that again?
The why is a funny one. I think it was, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think it's because David was like, it's a trilogy. It makes writing easier to know that there is an ending. At least for our team. Writing, knowing where you might be going is a lot easier as well. And when it came to actually ending it, we were really sensitive to making sure we didn't give the players all of the answers that we actually knew to a lot of questions they had about the lore, about the world and everything. Making sure that the world itself could maintain itself in the player brains. So that their characters weren't ending, they were actually just continuing inside of their imaginations. And
evil never die.
I still have a sticker.
Hey!
So I think the reason that it was a trilogy was we're all from a theatre background. We know that making creative projects is quite exhausting. And so our sustaining ourselves for forever was not sustainable in the arts practice. True. And then B, it's just easier to write an overall story over 3.
Yeah. Gavin? You've got 9 games. You've run 3 of them? 4 of them? 3 of them.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, Revenant's End is a stick of dynamite with a 9-session fuse.
And so it's scripted, right? You know what's going to happen roughly.
We know what the ending is going to be.
Okay.
It will vary based on our players' choices and what they do. and how the town grows and evolves and all these things. But we know the major beats that we want to introduce because that's part of the story that we want to tell. Uh,
Yeah.
we want to tell a story about this frontier town and what it means to live in it and what it means to make a town your own. And so there are certain beats that are going to happen towards the end that are designed to get our players asking those questions and figuring out what they're willing to sacrifice, what they're willing to fight for, these types of things. It was like from my earliest sort of recruitment pitches to people, it was 9 sessions. We
Yeah.
had questions over whether or not we should extend it, and we settled on no, we're going to leave it where it is and just use that to as a measure of how much can we commit to this game, how much can we put the pedal to the metal and absolutely floor it. There is a lot of stuff going on in Revenant's End, so much so that like even with the relatively condensed space, our players aren't touching all of the things simultaneously.
No.
They are constantly going, wait a minute, what are you doing? Holy crap. And that's a lot of load on a GM team.
Yeah.
So we are doing our best to calibrate for that and go, here is what we can sustain for this duration. We're going to hit our ending here, and hopefully none of us are going to be burned out and never wanting to run a game again, because that would be tragic.
Wouldn't it?
LARP rights and game runners are a tragically finite resource, and
They do burn
when you
out.
are and when you are designing a game, you should take your own safety into account.
Yeah.
It is a very difficult thing to balance, particularly if you've got that sort of people pleasing streak of, oh yeah, no, our players desperately want another 3 games. We could push. No, don't do it.
Okay.
Save
Deeply
yourself.
called out. All right.
Hey, look, I'm calling myself out at the same time. I am very aware of this thing. I'm like, yeah, I run games in perpetuity, and that way madness and destruction lies, and then I don't get to run another cool game.
Speaking of games in perpetuity, Ivan and Destiny, I'm not convinced that either of your games has stated a number of planned episodes or a planned ending. Is there one for either of you? Do you have a number of sessions or so forth? Either of you may speak.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's definitely something we've talked about, and we talk about every once in a while. Mostly not because we're feeling particularly burnt out with the Hobbit Hoedown. It's mostly because we're like, we've got other stuff in the chamber we'd really like to, and kapoom onto the entire LARP community. But
Sorry, what are you
it
doing
would
to the
mean
LARP community?
shooting them in the face with cold hard LARP. No, so we like I said, we spent the entire year in the lead up to our games. We not only running workshops, but we're also physically doing labor where we're like actually creating set pieces, and and that means that we have to go and source materials. And a lot of the time our materials are recycled, so we have to kind of find materials and then we give them new life, because that's kind of part of our ethos, I guess, is sustainability
it's
and all that jazz.
upcycling Hobbit land.
Yeah. And also, like, it means that we don't have to work twice as hard to make things look like they've been loved for years and years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of where we go with that. But we are, me, Evelyn, and Hayden are very, like, I don't know, I think we work so well together, and it's kind of crazy the amount of work that we do for only 3 people. And while we do have our prep team of people who help us to do some of that physical labor, because it would be too ambitious to complete all of our plans with just the three of us, again, physically, like doing everything. And I've said to people at the end of our games that everything that you can see at the Hobbit's Hoedown that has obviously been made for the game has at one point or another had either a prep team's like hands on it, or it's had a director's like hands on it, because we've all physically created these things. Because part of our expression of the game to us is that it is an art form, and then we also express that through actual physical media in a way, whether it's our bunting or our mailboxes that are custom to the families, or if it's banners that have been painted.
It's all costumes or any of those things. That's all the art, right? Like that's part of the hobby.
Yeah, it's part of the handicrafts of it
But
all.
you're dodging the
And
question,
we,
Desney. Do you have a designated limit of episodes?
yes, okay, sorry. So that's kind of like not really. We don't have a plan to stop doing the Hobbit's Hoedown.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if we wanted to run a different game, we would probably have to. We kind of don't want to let go of hobbits, mostly
No,
because
right? Because why would you? It's so
we love
delightful.
doing it. Yeah, we love doing it, and also we love making a home for other people to be a part of. And we're very cognizant that there are a lot of people who suffer with accessibility issues that can't go to a lot of LARPs, that LARPs just are completely inaccessible to some of those folks. Some of our families and children can't partake if they didn't have the Hobbit's Hoedown. And it means that they still get to have ownership over their hobbies and the thing that they love, not because they stopped loving LARP, but because they needed to sort of change how they
heard it here first, everybody.
prioritized.
The Hobbit's Hoedown will continue forever.
However, I will say,
forever. It's always going to happen. Desney promise
I will say,
is what's happening.
I'll say that
fantastic.
if
Thank
it
you,
did.
Desney. Okay, Ivan.
Could I interject a thing here?
Okay.
Oh, could I actually interject? Because
Yes.
I haven't finished. So I would say if we were going to end, if we were going to say this is going to be the last ever Hobbit's Hoedown, I think how we would treat it is kind of like a Studio Ghibli movie. Like the idea is that the story has carried on without you present, but that you would have this bittersweet sense of like, we shared this thing together and it's over now and it exists in its own pocket. And maybe
that's so beautiful.
Maybe the future goes on without us, but we're just not witness to it.
Yeah, I love that.
So I think it would like have this like gentle kind of ending, even though it might be a very emotional end for our players.
Also, it would sell out in about quarter of a second when you like it's the last hoedown.
Yeah.
Gavin.
Please, Gav.
And then we want to move on to Midnight in Melbourne structure.
Absolutely. I want to state there is a tool that Revenants End uses that I picked up doing Watches of East Haven that I would strongly encourage any potential LARPwright team picking up and using as well. And that is start your meetings when you are discussing what's going to happen in the next game with the question of, do we all want to keep running this? Yeah. Answer it honestly and accept the answer. It might be no.
Yeah.
If you answer no and keep running that game, it's going to be bad. Know when to call it.
Beautifully
Trust your team members.
Yeah. Every meeting we did that, and we ran 14 events?
Yeah.
And around event 12, people started saying, I don't know. And then we finished it. And we didn't go crazy. It was great. Jess, did you have a thing?
No, I was just going to be like, I agree hardcore. And we actually had a few moments this year where we were like, do we want to do this? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And then it got to the event and we're like, this is why we're doing it. And I'm glad
it's fucking amazing.
And it's done.
Yeah, that's always going to be a thing. If you love running LARPs, you're going to hit those, oh my god, I've bitten off way too much. I cannot possibly manage this, and then hit the event. But it's a similar thing that you'll find in theatre, in any large-scale production of
Music
that
and
moment.
painting. Yeah.
Yeah, when the rubber hits the road, that's the moment.
It's
But
just
there
absurd
is...
that... Oh, sorry.
No, you're all good. I was just going to say, it's just have the check-in and be honest with it along the way.
It's really good advice. And don't run 3 events in a year. Just don't do it.
Sorry?
From personal experience.
So Ivan, who's run 4 events this year, to be fair, none of them are 4-day events, but yet, does Midnight in Melbourne have a timeline? And
Yes.
would you like to tell us about it?
Yes, it was a 1-session event. It was only ever meant to be a 1-session event.
Scope creep.
It was only meant to be a one-off. That was it. But just like Jess, who says, like, I'm going to disappear at 10 o'clock and now it's 11. Like, it carries on, doesn't it?
It just keeps
Midnight in Melbourne was meant to be just a 1-session event. It was meant to be it was meant to be proof that it could happen.
That is how you pitched it. I'd forgotten that you'd pitched it like that. Okay.
What it came down to was that, like, there was a I run a D&D Dungeons and Dragons events for Masters of Alchemy, who are and they ended up who do events on Sundays at Fortress, and I was working for them, and they started doing one on a Monday night at a beautiful little bar in South Melbourne called South Yarra, called Talk to Me Bar, and they wanted a Monday night one for the local hospitality crowd, who it was Hospo night, and I quickly worked out. I quickly worked out that I'm an ex-bartender myself. Like, you can't explain something with all the complexity of D&D and all the dice rolling to people who want to get drunk, kind of thing. They're more interested in drinking and having fun and being in character than all the mechanics that D&D has. And I was like, I think an old school LARP, maybe a vampire LARP, where you dress up and drink cocktails and don't care about the system so much, would be a lot better for this, where you don't have dice and the like. And that was why I did it. I wanted to prove we could do this, and that was why it was built. It was meant to be that, and I liked the idea of maybe taking that template that I had, and I kept it a very simple vampire template, and do it at a few other bars. And like just go, yeah, we can. If you want to try something other than Dungeons and Dragons, try that. And it went really well, and then people wanted the next one, and we are in a growth period. We're doing our 13th event in February, which we want to make extra special because 13 is a very vampire number. It's important to us. We always run our events on the Sunday closest to the 13th of the month. We do that because we are wankers, and it suits our thing.
But it's
the
great.
thing that the manics are important.
You cannot run a vampire game without being a bit of a wanker.
We do,
and you cannot
exactly.
run a good one without being a bit self-aware about it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We do our events on the Sunday because
it's an objective fact.
Sundays are blasphemous, right?
Yes, perfect.
On the 13th, on the Sunday closest to the 13th of the month, 13's unlucky, vampires, in the dying month of the season, February and the like.
Yeah.
It is incredibly pretentious. But that's why we have that. But I think, like, I think where we have so much of the world of darkness to explore. We have endings of arcs and storylines. So we explored the Anarch storyline. We're in our Camarilla story at the moment, and we're looking. So, and I do have the idea that storyline will run its course, maybe in a year's time, maybe a little bit more. Who knows? Depends on what happens in there.
Yeah.
I've intentionally tried to keep what we use in the lore minimized at any one stage so that we've got room to move. But we've got people who we're interested in exploring werewolf and the other areas of the world of that. We talked about Wraith earlier. I'd love to do some Wraith. I'd like to do it in a very different
No one
style.
wants to play Wraith. Sorry.
Well, you don't play Wraith, you experience Wraith, man. You undergo the process.
Yeah, you deal with Wraith. I love that. Sorry. Thank you, Ivan. We are running out of time. I know. I could listen to you talk about role playing forever. I genuinely could.
Oh.
But we are hitting 11 o'clock. I said we would finish at 11 o'clock. And I am a woman of my word. So, in like, I don't know, less than 3 sentences. No, that's insane. Real quick, what do you guys each want people to take away from this? So the questions are going to be, what do you want people to take away from this? What button do you want them to click that you're going to put the link in on the chat? And that's about it, really. Okay, let's go around the circle. Gavin.
The thing that I would like folks to take away from this discussion is think about why you're asking some of these questions. The tools we've discussed, the decisions we've made, and talked about are very personal to our games. They reflect certain values of how we think about things, and the faders that you'll find on the mixing desk reflect certain things about the culture that came from. It's important to think about those things, to try and see what is missing in places, to think about what choices you make affect other areas of the game that you might not see. How do your choices around stress on players affect the accessibility of your game? Who can come and play your game because of the choices you are making? And what sacrifices you're willing to make in those regards, what you want to hold up as sacrosanct. Make those choices mindfully and deliberately.
Yeah. Beautiful.
As far as links,
Yeah.
I will drop a link to, or get somebody to drop a link to the Caligo Mundi website. Revenant's End is currently full on players. We are well at our capacity as far as GMs to run on players. We will have an NPC expression of interest form out for that. And Caligo is also running another game that's starting up early in the year. We also have a couple of other events to get involved in, see what's happening. We have a big 2026 planned. So if you are interested in seeing some of these different types of LARPs getting run, jump onto the Caligo website, join our Discord, have a chat.
And I will convince
Wave
everybody
Hider
in
will.
Caligo to put their events on the Vic Lab calendar.
Yes.
Ivan. One thing that you want everyone to learn from this chat, one thing that... Oh, and then, like, any buttons you want to click.
Any art form doesn't have any one way to approach it. And so when we're looking at something like these faders and things, that is not the way to run a LARP. There is no way to run a LARP in the same way that there's no way to run a. There's no way to make a film or to paint a picture. Role playing is an art form, and as an art form, you can only ever make it your own by making mistakes, and it can be more than a game, and it should be more than a game. It can be a game, but it can be more than a game, and it's not always fun. I never read Animal Farm or read To Kill a Mockingbird because they're fun, but they enriched me. And I think that you were allowed to do things that are difficult, that are not successful, and art does not have a true path. Make your own path. Do something really different. But if you want to make money, then then follow the simple stuff. Follow the simple stuff, because like I don't know if any of us are really making money.
I don't think anyone makes money from LARP.
From role playing in general, yeah, it's pretty
From
cool.
role playing in general, maybe a little bit.
If you want to be an artist, be prepared to be prepared to go a different path, but it's not necessarily going to be one that's going to be easy.
Yeah.
But listen to your players. Listen to the people who come to your events. They'll tell you what they want, and you can decide whether you want to be doing that for them, with them, or for a different audience.
Beautiful. Have you got links for us, Ivan?
I'll put something in. I'm sure we have the Insta. Oh, Elm would be so much better than this.
I know. Elm went offline.
Elm is so amazing.
There's
if
a
I
couple
say
of
one more thing,
people-
like Elm is just the good thing. Oh, if you were gonna run a LARP, do it with Elm.
All right, duly noted. There's a couple of people who have posted things and they're coming out as just stars in the chat, and I'm trying to work out how to make that not happen. I don't know. I'm sorry. If you text them to me, I will post them properly. Jess.
When we were doing our reflection for this year, most of us realized that everything that we wanted to say was about the process. So make sure that the process is just as enjoyable, if not more, than the event itself. I think that's the most important. Choose sustainable work practice, choose enjoyment, and choose a team that you love making with and that you love to create with. That's it.
That's beautiful.
I'm going to send a link to our Instagram because it's going to turn into something else real soon.
Excitement. Adventure. Show messages caught by channel block terms. No. Sorry. I don't know how to make... There's like links getting deleted in the chat. I want that not to happen. I don't know how to make it not happen. If you're super...
So people can't spam you with the crypto wallet links that steal your identity.
Crypto wallet links that steal my identity.
That's
I
shame.
mean, more to the point, I don't believe that any of these things are those things. Okay.
Make mistakes, gang. Make a lot of mistakes.
Make so many mistakes.
Make all the mistakes.
So much.
I
Make
am
them
so
all.
bad at running this stream that I don't know how to let my panelists put fucking links in the chat. But I'm still doing it because it's cool as shit. Okay. Okay.
Did
Anyway.
Des get a chance to answer that question?
Des, please answer the question.
Gosh, what was the question again?
What do you want people to take away from the discussion?
Yeah, okay. Well, specifically on the mixing desk, I think broad strokes on the concept of the mixing desk. It's important to understand that the rules are kind of the vehicle for your mixing desk ideals. And your mechanics should always match your themes. That's how you kind of embody in the art form of your game as you write it. That's how you kind of get the vibes, I suppose. And so it's important to reflect that as much as you can and sort of point it all towards your artistic vision, your core, to really maintain consistency throughout your mechanics and to, in a way, ensure that they match the player experience as well as your intention. And I think as well that it's important to know that sometimes you can communicate that explicitly and also in passive ways in how you organize your community and how you do things like workshops and how you empower your players. For the Hobbit Hoedown, we love empowering our players to have like more skills, so artisan skills where people craft together and learn design techniques together, like costume design. And we want to try and empower our players as much as possible and entitle them to not only community and being around people, but a safety and warmth that they can get from making new friends and trying new things. So yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. If you have things that you would like people to click on, stick them in the Discord chat, panelists, and I will post them in the Twitch chat really quickly. Thank you, everybody, for coming and watching us. Thank you for coming and visiting. There we go. Look at that. That link works, or it's not a link, but you can just type it into your Instagram. It'll be great. Once again, Immersive Arts Melbourne is a group of people who are trying to make more LARPs happen, and we love the LARP medium, and also we like talking to people who run LARPs. So, people who are interested in more LARPs, follow this thing. We will be doing these things every 2 weeks. I'll come up with something extremely low-key for the 2nd of January, which will be our next game, next one of these streams. It may just be me hungover and staring quietly at a screen for 25 hours. I don't know what it'll be. But thank you so much to our panelists, Rob from who was the head writer for Black Powder and Bloodlines, Gavin, who is I don't know, what's your title at the moment?
The one where I've got on the Discord at the moment is the Architect of Revenants, and
amazing.
It's the pretension thing again, right?
Yeah, the Architect of Revenants and the heart of Watchers of Easthaven. Ivan, who is the head wanker at Midnight in Melbourne, and also just a god of the Melbourne role-playing scene for such a long time. Jess, the most exciting newcomer in the LARP producer scene forever, who was the one that made Dance of Ribbons happen, and without them it would not have. And Destiny, who got drunk with us 5 years ago and threw out their old LARP idea and decided to run a Hobbits thing instead, and is now an international superstar about it. And also ran the LARP I came out at, which I think I will forever be grateful for. Anyway, you're all delightful. Thank you so much for being with us. Say your last words, because I'm going to turn off the buttons.
Bless your hearts, everyone. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and goodbye.
Take care.
Happy holidays. Bye, everyone.